few car accident cases. Good morning, Tony. How are you?
I'm good, Jonathan. Thanks a lot for hooking up with me to put this little Google Hangout together on car accidents.
Well, it was so easy. I figured why not do it more often. But anyway, today I just want to ask you some questions about car accident cases. Now,
Okay.
personal injury lawyer, I know you handle a lot of car accident cases, right?
Right. That's pretty much the big part of it.
And I think everyone that I know has either been in a car accident themselves or certainly knows someone who was. And I think as a personal injury lawyer, that's sort of a positive as well as a negative. Would you sort of agree with that?
Yes, because a lot of people who've been in car accidents become street corner lawyers to my clients, and every case is different, completely different,
Absolutely.
and so you got this friend telling them one thing, and it certainly may not apply. There's so many facts that you have to put together, and then the legal issues.
I think everyone's got really good, genuine intentions, but the problem is, as you said, is that a lot of things are very case specific. One of the things that I've seen that I wanted to ask you about is are there certain situations where someone can try to resolve a case on their own, or are there situations where really someone needs an attorney to sort of help them in terms of negotiating with an insurance company?
That's a great question, and the the short answer is not every person who's in an accident and sustains some injury really needs a personal injury attorney. I probably talk to, I would say, 2 to 3 people a week that I tell them that their case is just so small that I can't add any value. Now, some people may want to not want to deal with the insurance company, but the reality is if you've gone to a doctor one time, or sometimes you're sitting at home a couple of days and you're a little achy, and then all of a sudden you get a phone call from a chiropractor, and you go to a chiropractor once or twice, and now it's 3 months later and you haven't been. I can't add value to those cases. It's the serious case where the threat that we as attorneys bring to the table is litigation, that we're going to take something the insurance company doesn't want to give us. So, it's for the layperson. Their problem is figuring out when do they need an attorney and when don't they, because the insurance companies are telling them you don't need an attorney. They're going to take a third or whatever percentage, and I'm not going to pay you any more if you get an attorney or not. And the people buy into that in some cases.
Right. Now, I'm sure you get a lot of calls from people during your day where, they explain to you, hey, I was in this car accident last night, so and so happened, I went to the hospital, they may have been pretty seriously injured, and then they sort of end the conversation by saying, hey, but the driver who hit me had full insurance coverage. And to a lot of people, it sounds like, well, full insurance, that means they have a lot of money, that they have a lot of insurance coverage available to them when they're injured. Can you sort of elaborate for us a little bit about what that term full insurance coverage really means?
Jonathan, that's so, as particularly when you ask even your own clients, because you're concerned about if someone, even if they have full coverage, which is, if I'm driving my car and I wreck into you and it's my fault, that's collision, so that's going to pay for your damages. Then there's comprehensive that deals with the car if it's on fire, or collision if I wreck my own car, then that pays it. Then there's uninsured motorist that protects me if someone with little or no insurance hits me, and then full coverage I've written an article some in the distant past. I called it full coverage or fool's coverage. So you can have full coverage, all those things that I mentioned, but in the very minimum limits. And right now in the state of Ohio, you can be driving around with $12,500 per person, $25,000 per accident liability coverage. You have comprehensive, you have collision, you have what they call medical payments. Maybe you have $1,000 of that, and your underinsured motorist coverage is only $12,500, and so that's not really helpful. So it's not so much about whether or not the other party or you had full coverage, it's how much coverage did you have.
So full coverage really is not an indication of the amount of, it's got no bearing on the amount of insurance coverage available for a particular accident.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, as a personal injury attorney who is constantly bombarded by people who may have been in an accident last week, last month, last year. Some people have very significant injuries. Some people may have more of soft tissue type injury. How do you make a determination as to the cases that you accept? Do you have a sort of a formula? Obviously you want people to be happy with your services. How do you make that determination as to, if this is a case that you're going to really be able to help that person?
Jonathan, that's a great question, and it's a hard question in some cases. Well, the first issue is, is there liability? You can talk to the person and you can get a pretty good feel for was the other just because the other person was cited by the police doesn't necessarily mean that the other person was at fault, but you can hear the facts, get the police report if preliminarily, or just even over the phone, make a pretty good determination that there's responsibility. Sometimes there may be partial responsibility, but clearly you can pretty well decide. You get a rear-end collision, a left to center, T-bone intersection, failure to yield the right-of-way. So you want to know what the liability is, and then of course you want to know, was there significant car damage? We all know, Jonathan, all these seminars that we've seen, low impact soft tissue cases where there's no car damage, and you can spend a heck of a lot of money getting experts, and people can get hurt. The cars are built so good now that they take the bulk of the hit, but it's really, really hard to convince a jury when you look at a car and see no car damage on at least on one of the cars, because cars can underwrite. So I usually am looking for some type of significant damage. If the bumper cover underneath the bumper has been bent, something like that. And then of course, how fast have they gone to the doctor? Did they start going the day of? That's the ideal situation. Do they have, if they got a broken and severe injury, they're in the hospital. Those are the kind of cases I take and I can add value. Now the ones that are a close call, or maybe somebody's been trying to handle the case themselves for a little while. It's been about 4 months out. The insurance companies kind of started to jerk them around. They're getting the picture. And they come in and they've really only seen the doctor a couple times. Maybe they did go to the emergency room. That may or may not be a case that I can take unless I can sort of, with my intuition and judgment, kind of think, well, is this going to lead to, is this just a strain or a sprain that's going to heal up? Or are they having radiating pain down an extremity, and it could be a disc injury? Then that could be very severe and serious. I may go ahead and take that case and follow it, and maybe they get better in 6 weeks, but I think they need somebody in there to help guide them on that kind of case. So
in a situation like that, would you suggest maybe to have, if someone's in an accident and they're sort of ambivalent about contacting a lawyer, would you suggest that they contact someone sooner than later.
Yeah, absolutely. And what the public, one, they don't realize that, we're contingency fee lawyers in this personal injury. We're kind of gamblers, is what I call us, or it's kind of like the Wild West in a way. You're gonna take a gamble on this. You're not billing out hourly. We don't do that. If we don't produce, we don't have a good case, we don't get paid. But when a client calls us, we don't charge them. We're happy to speak to people for 10, 15, 20 minutes to give them some guidance, to say, hey, right now I don't think you need somebody. Don't settle up quick. Make sure you're 100%. If things start to go bad, give me a call back. But right now you've been to the emergency room and you've been to your family doctor and you're working and you're a little bit sore. I'm probably going to tell them, if you get better in a couple, 3, 4 weeks, you can handle that case yourself.
Interesting. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk to you about was, the negotiations with the insurance company for the at-fault driver. Insurance adjusters nowadays are very good at assessing cases. They're very good at, making people comfortable, getting them to disclose information. In terms of your experience talking with these people, what are some of the ways and some of the defenses that insurance adjusters use to either delay or deny a claim entirely?
Well, the whole thing is, the injury has to point back to the car accident. And so what the insurance companies will look for, they'll want you to sign an authorization. They may not just get your emergency room record where you were hurt. They may ask for every bill from that hospital. And what they're looking for is past injuries. And if you've had one, you certainly tell your lawyer about it, and we can prepare and we can figure out how to work around that. But their defenses are, hey, A, you've had some problems before, that's your real issue. B, since the accident, you had a gap in treatment. We think you fell in your backyard or got hurt at work, so it's not us. Or you've aged into the injury. It's been 6 months and you're 50 years old. You get that arthritis in there and it's been aggravated, but you would have had that problem anyway. So that's what they taught. Those are the big ones that I see, and so that's why our job is to manage that case, to get them to the proper doctors, to get the right reports written, so that at least we have a connection to the injury.
Interesting. Well, I want to thank you for spending some time with me this morning. It's been really insightful, and hopefully your clients, as well as my clients here in Chicago, can learn a thing or two about car accident cases.
Well, I hope so, Jonathan, and you're a great interviewer. I don't know how you did it so nicely off the cuff to ask. Those are all a lot of questions that we know, that from doing this for so long, that people have in their mind, and I'm sure you've been asked those questions probably many times. But a lot of people, nobody goes to school to learn how to handle their own car accident case. So I thank you very much, Jonathan.
Oh, thank you. Let's do it again soon.
All righty.